Welcome back to my channel. Let's kick off this video. This problem is asking about bad debt expense. And so anytime I do an allowance for a bad debt problem, I always like to analyze the two accounts of accounts receivable and allowance for doubtful accounts. The accounts receivable is an asset account that appears on the balance sheet. It increases on the left with the debit and decreases on the right with a credit. It has a beginning balance. It increases with credit sales. So sales that are made on account, and the only way it goes down is if a customer makes a payment on their account. So cash collections, and then it can also go down if we actually write off an account. And we would do that because a customer hasn't paid us, but they're never going to pay us. They filed for bankruptcy or something like that. So that will give us our ending balance. The allowance is a contra asset, which means it still shows in the asset section of the balance sheet. But contra means opposite. So it has a credit balance and increases on the right and decreases on the left. And so it has a beginning balance, and on the right, it increases by, we saw over here the journal entry when you record bad debt expense and credit allowance, that is the journal entry. So this is whatever you record in bad debt expense is being recorded in the allowance account. And this is our estimate of what we think people aren't going to pay us. Whereas the other side is the actual what we actually write off. And that will give us our ending balance. So what I want to do is take the information that's given to us in this problem. And I always start by just inputting everything that's given to me and then see what it's asking. So what I want to do is take the information that's given to us in this problem and put it into these accounts and solve for what is bad debt expense. So we can see at the beginning that we're given the beginning balance for accounts receivable and the beginning balance for allowance. So if I come over here, accounts receivable is $150,000 and the allowance is $30,000. Then they also tell me the cash collection and the credit sales for the year that both goes in the accounts receivable. So we'll increase it by the credit sales, which is $868,000, and we'll decrease it with cash collections, $830,000. And then finally, they give us the accounts receivable at the end of the year and the allowance for bad debt at the end of the year. And then it's asking me for bad debt expense. So the ending balances that they provide is $180,000 for accounts receivable and $53,000 for the allowance. So you can see, if you were to look at this, I'm actually missing here in accounts receivable what the write-offs were for the period, but I have every number except for that one. And that's how these problems will be. You'll want to know everything that goes into the account because I will just give you one unknown. But we can solve for this unknown with some algebra. We will add everything on the left and decrease everything on the right. So 150,000 plus 868,000 minus 830,000, which is on the right, minus x. That's what we want to solve for, needs to be equal to 180, the ending balance. So I'll do some algebra, put the x on the other side, move over the 180, and solve for x, and x is 8,000. So I can go ahead and put 8,000 here. Now you can check your math here. Oftentimes you miss this because they added where they should have subtracted. They just quickly put it in their calculator, but you should just quickly add is 150 plus 68, 830, 8,000 equal to 180,000. And then if it is, you haven't messed up a sign. So now I want to move over. What this question is actually asking for is what is bad debt expense. I do know what the write-off is. And since I know what that is, it's the same number you can see. The write-off appears in both accounts. One is because in the allowance account on the right we estimate, and on the left is what actually goes bad. And then the accounts receivable is actually writing off the customer, identifying the customer. So this is 8,000. And now I can solve for x in the allowance account. So this time, I'm going to add everything on the right and subtract everything on the left. So 30,000 plus x minus 8,000 is equal to 53,000, and I again will solve for x, and x is 31,000, which will go right here, which is bad debt expense for the period. If you found this video helpful and would like to see the next educational videos, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Additionally, if you have any suggestions for tutorial topics, please write them in the comments. Thank you.